Welcome to Podkey Weekly News, your brisk brief on the border, oil, housing, and markets. The biggest moves this week came from courts, not campaign speeches. On immigration, on Iran, and on interest rates, the practical rules just shifted in ways that hit workers, prices, and policy fast. The Supreme Court handed the administration a major win on temporary protected status, ruling that decisions to end TPS are non-justiciable. In plain terms, federal judges largely cannot review DHS choices to unwind those protections. Right now, that hits about 350,000 Haitians and roughly 6,000 to 7,000 Syrians, and it opens a path for future revocations that could reach large Salvadoran and Ukrainian populations too. Why it matters is straightforward. TPS is work authorization and legal stability for people here because of war, disaster, or political breakdown at home. Losing it does not just change paperwork, it can remove long-term workers from local economies very quickly. The sharpest labor risk is in healthcare and elder care, where Haitian TPS holders are heavily concentrated. If those workers are pushed out, staffing shortages and community disruption follow. That said, legal permission to revoke status is not the same as easy mass removals. Detention space, aircraft, travel documents, and cooperation from home countries all remain bottlenecks, and the administration is still negotiating repatriation arrangements. In a separate border case, the court also upheld asylum metering limits. That backs restrictions keeping would-be asylum seekers waiting on the Mexican side of ports of entry unless they physically cross first. The immediate on-the-ground effect may be modest where crossings were already being tightly curtailed, but the legal significance is big. It narrows asylum access and gives stricter border controls firmer footing. The court rulings land on top of an immigration bench already under heavy political pressure. About 115 immigration judges, roughly 15% of the bench, were dismissed early in Trump's second term. Because those judges are DOJ employees, they can be fired by the administration. Critics say the result is a system pushed towards speed over due process, with inexperienced replacement judges, daily case quotas, and dockets that can run to around 12,000 cases for a single judge. The outcome data show the whiplash clearly. Asylum grant rates have swung from around 1 in 3 in Trump's first term to about 1 in 2 under Biden, to under 10% after Trump's return. That is not a subtle policy adjustment. It is a different system depending on who controls it. The other major development was the preliminary U.S Iran Memorandum of Understanding reached in Switzerland, with Pakistan and Qatar helping mediate. It sets out a 60-day roadmap covering Lebanon, communications in the Strait of Hormuz, and nuclear talks. Markets cared immediately because the reopening of Hormuz helped lift vessel traffic and pulled Brent crude back toward roughly $79 to $80 a barrel after wartime spikes. For consumers, the catch is timing. Lower oil risk does not instantly mean cheaper gas or groceries. Shipping, refining, and commodity pricing all lag, so any relief could take months. For energy markets, the bigger watch item is oversupply. The IEA has warned that if the calm holds, production could outpace demand as early as next year. That would pressure energy earnings even after a strong run in the sector. The diplomacy itself is fragile. The MOU uses broad political language on the nuclear issue and lacks the kind of technical detail that makes verification credible, like explicit limits on production, testing, or enrichment. There is also a trust problem already visible in public. U.S. officials described inspection access and Hormuz assurances, while Iran denied making new inspection commitments. If both sides are selling different deals to their own audiences, the roadmap gets shakier fast. The U.S. Iran opening has also triggered an unusually open split with Israel. Israeli leaders and allied U.S. politicians are attacking the framework, and U.S. officials have signaled that military aid could become conditional if Israel breaks the ceasefire. That matters because it introduces a lever Washington has rarely used so bluntly. It could change Israel's operational calculus, but it also raises the odds of a more public alliance rupture. At the same time, Iran appears to be using Hezbollah activity and limited provocations as bargaining chips, keeping pressure on Israel without crossing into full-scale escalation. That balancing act is exactly the kind that can fail suddenly. In Venezuela, the humanitarian story is the twin earthquakes near Caracas, magnitudes 7.2 and 7.5 just seconds apart. The damage reports are catastrophic, with widespread collapse, damaged infrastructure, and large aftershock risks likely to continue for months. Casualty numbers moved quickly and remain contested, but confirmed deaths climbed into the hundreds and reports of missing people were far higher in the immediate aftermath. The response is constrained by Venezuela's weak health and transport systems. Hospitals are overstretched. Only a fraction of operating theaters are functional, and even the international airport runway was reported cracked. International rescue teams and aid pledges are coming in, including U.S. humanitarian support, but coordination is difficult and needs for shelter, food, and medical care will last well beyond the initial rescue phase. Back in the U.S., housing remains stuck. Spring buying slowed with mortgage rates around 6.66%, and analysts warn a weak season now can push normal transaction recovery out much further. The core problem is rate lock-in. Millions of owners have mortgages below 4% and do not want to give them up. So listings stay low even as affordability worsens for buyers. That is why renting is becoming a long-term choice across age groups, not just a stopgap for young adults. Limited construction and pandemic-era refinancing helped freeze the resale market and keep prices elevated. There is a policy response on the table. The bipartisan housing package would ease permitting, relax some environmental reviews, tie grants to actual unit production, and make manufactured housing cheaper by removing chassis rules that can save about $5,000 to $10,000 per unit. But the politics are messy. President Trump paused signing the housing bill while seeking concessions for separate voter ID legislation, turning supply-side housing reform into leverage in a different fight. Markets also had to absorb a new Fed tone. Chair Kevin Warsh signaled a less talkative, more hawkish central bank, scaling back explicit forward guidance and reinforcing the pushback to 2% inflation. Investors reacted by pushing up short-term Treasury yields and sharply cutting expectations for near-term rate cuts. That hit rate-sensitive growth stocks and added to the swings already running through the AI trade. There is a real inflation link here too. AI build-out is driving heavy demand for memory and advanced chips, lifting component costs and adding pressure to electronics prices. At the same time, export controls and alleged model distillation theft are making the sector more geopolitical and less predictable. One undercovered story with major human impact is Cambodia's scam compound industry. Reports suggest profits on this business may now equal roughly half the country's formal GDP, built on recruiting workers from at least 35 countries with fake job offers. Inside the compounds, the structure reportedly looks like a corporation with developers, team leads, and PR staff, backed by surveillance, fines, isolation rooms, and abuse claims including torture. Raids and extraditions have not solved the problem. Thousands of migrants remain stranded by overstay fines, weak shelter capacity, and limited international response, and many end up re-recruited into the same system they escaped. The reason this persists is not mystery but protection. Investigations tie owners to political elites and business figures close to the ruling family, while crackdowns on NGOs and media make documentation harder. Finally, Europe's heat dome pushed temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius across multiple countries, triggering red alerts, school closures, cooling rooms, and public health measures. The immediate story is safety, but the policy point is adaptation. Officials are now treating this level of heat as a recurring condition, which means building retrofits, water planning, and work rule changes move from climate debate into basic infrastructure management. That's the brief for now. You're listening to Podkey Weekly News, and we'll be back with the next set of developments that actually move policy, markets, and daily life. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.